It's very windy today. It's another beautiful day in Tasmania, and I think if I didn't know any better, if I didn't have access to the internet and to news in general, in science really, that I wouldn't really know what was going on. I wouldn't really think that there was anything wrong with the planet at all. And of course, if you follow the science, you can see that the planet, well, the planet's going to continue on, but life on the planet is probably, most life on the planet is going to be radically changed in the next few decades, and by the end of the century, we probably will not exist as a species. I'm talking about humans now, and most other species will probably be either gone or struggling. And, this is this is completely avoidable, of course. It's not avoidable in that there's been generations of people have led up to this point, generations of people who, even though back in around 1912, I think there was somebody had predicted that this was going to happen, that anthropogenic climate change was coming, and that it was going to be mostly from, sort of fossil fuels. But there are other contributors which we continue to ignore, either thinking that they're not that important, or that there are other things we need to do, like, ending capitalism or ending imperialism. And yes, they are very, very important things, and they will definitely help. But like, I was on a live stream today, and I mentioned, as I usually do when people bring up the climate crisis, I mention veganism, and there's either crickets. It's unfortunately people that usually are conducting these live streams are not vegan. And most people in the live streams are not vegan, and when you mention stuff, it's crickets, or you'll get somebody who'll have cognitive dissonance and I'm sure there are a lot of people who have cognitive dissonance when I bring it up, because they know they should be becoming vegan, but they sort of feel like that's something that they don't need to do because nobody else is doing it, that kind of thing, which is a terrible reason not to be vegan, by the way. But you'll get somebody who will troll me, or just be outright rude, or make up dozens of pathetic excuses and things that are totally also not based in science. Not thinking for a moment that I'm not vegan because I didn't become vegan because of the climate crisis, although that was something I realized later. Not, about a year later, I realized how much that impacts the climate crisis. But I became vegan because I realized we were doing these terrible things to sentient animals, which we would never dream of doing to, say, cats and dogs. And for some reason we just wouldn't. We wouldn't dream of doing what we're doing to other non-human animals that we use mostly for food. We wouldn't dream of doing that to cats and dogs. But for some reason we've morally compartmentalized cats and dogs and other animals, pigs, goats, sheep, cows, fish, etc., hens. We've compartmentalized them and made out as if cats and dogs are some sort of special group that have more sentience, that have more likes and dislikes, they have personalities, and that these other animals don't. They're just, I don't know what we think they are. We don't think. That's the problem. And people are not silly. We know that animals morally matter, all of them. We know they have sentience. Most people have seen the way cows are, the way hens are. They demonstrate they demonstrate that they are sentient, they demonstrate they love life. And yet we just keep carrying on as if and morally compartmentalizing and pretending they don't matter, and that cats and dogs matter. I mean, to me that is just amazing that we keep lying to ourselves. And then I find this incredibly frustrating and depressing when I bring this up in live streams. And, it's just crickets. And I know it's because people don't want to have to change anything in their life. People would rather wring their hands and point outwardly at the problem than change their life and take personal responsibility. It's no point in saying, oh, I'm going to drive an electric car, I'm going to do all those things they suggest on Earth Day, I'm going to not buy from Amazon, I'm not going to buy from any of these places that treat workers terribly. when everything that we're doing during the day, the 3 meals we eat a day, are not only enslaving sentient beings, just like the people that are enslaved in these Amazon factories and Amazon warehouses and Frito-Lay and all of that, but worse, much, much worse. And people in those factories, in those in the warehouse, they're not killed at the end, and their children aren't taken from them and then used and then killed and all of that. And yet we seem to think it's okay that we do this to non-human animals, even though they're sentient and they love life just like we do and do not want to die. I don't know why this is so difficult. I don't know why it's so difficult to recognize that what we are doing to the planet is a direct result of what we are doing to non-human animals. It's a direct result. We're destroying the nest of our own nest and the nest of all non-human animals. That's 99.99% of the planet's population. Because we can't stop torturing and killing 1 to 3 trillion animals every year for trivial reasons of mostly palate pleasure, even though we don't need to eat or use animals. We don't need to eat animal products, that's meat, dairy, eggs, fish, etc. We don't need to use animals at all to survive. We can easily meet all our nutrition requirements from plants and other non-animal sources. So the only reason we're doing all of this, the only reason we're killing that many sentient beings, torturing and killing them, and the only reason we're destroying the planet, and I've showed you that largest study to date, which everybody crickets when I bring this up. That's another one. The largest study to date, 114 countries, 40,000 farms from farm to fork, 90% of all we eat. And the result of that largest study to date, which was 2 years ago, by Dr. Joseph Paul from the UK, you can find it online. The conclusion was that a plant-based diet, a diet free of eggs, dairy, meat, fish, etc., is the single biggest thing one can do to address the climate crisis. And not only that, but also address the acidification, eutrophication, the destruction of the oceans, the destruction of the land shortages. It's better than driving an electric car or doing anything like that. Better than not flying planes. It is the single biggest thing one can do. I mean, there was a study done a few years ago, and I think it's much, much worse than this, but I remember like about 10 years ago, the World Institute Watch, I think it was called World Institute Watch, something like that. They did a study. It was 51% of greenhouse gases from animal agriculture. But this study that's done recently, it's if we stopped eating animal products, we would stop participating in the tremendous violence that we're doing right now for unnecessary reasons, and we would stop all the things that it means with the climate catastrophe. The asylum seekers and the refugees, the climate crisis refugees, the wet bulb incidents where people are dropping dead from heat, the tremendous fires, we had that in Australia just recently. All of the things, the sea level rises, the agriculture on the brink, like crop failures are failing. It would mitigate some of the more dreadful things that are coming. And, I don't have much hope now from 2013 onwards, I realized it was too late. We had feedback loops, we had, exponential runaway global warming. But there are things we can do to mitigate the tremendous devastation that's coming. So if we care at all about other life on this planet besides our own, and if we care about our own life, which is on the front lines of the 6th mass extinction, then for goodness sake, please consider going vegan. I don't know what I need to say. We can't stop these idiots that are in government that are doing their very best to destroy everything. They're psychopaths. We can't really stop them. Short of the violent, bloody revolution, I don't think there's any way to really stop them. Unless, of course, we have enough time, which I don't believe we have, to basically have a revolution where people completely reject capitalism and there's all sorts of general strikes and it's like a complete rejection. And there's socialist groups that are working on the ground to change people's minds. I don't think we have enough time for that, but I'm all for that, right? I'm all for grassroots movement outside of, non-violent grassroots movement outside of this insanity that is electoral politics. I'm all for it, but if we probably don't have a lot of time left for that. We can keep doing it. But we can become vegan right now. Right now, when you end watching this video, you can look up howtogovegan.org. That's my vegan podcast, comprehensive vegan podcast. And you can also look up, if you're interested in nutrition, which you should be, everybody should be. If you're concerned about that, there's also references to nutritionfacts.org in that podcast. I did that like 5 years ago. There's probably a few things I could update, but basically it's pretty good, if I do say so myself. So check it out, howtogovegan.org. And watch Seaspiracy. Now, I'm too much of a coward to watch it. I can't bear to see animals being tortured, and there's a few things like that, of course, because it's about what we're doing to the oceans. But Dee Dee has checked it out, and she said it's very good. I think they even, I don't know if they outright mention veganism, but that's the answer. That's the antidote to this devastation. And the same with Cowspiracy. Veganism is the antidote to what you see in Cowspiracy. Veganism is the antidote to what you see in the documentary What the Health. All those are good things to watch. But just think about, would we allow, if you read what I'm going to post in the information section, What's Wrong with Vegetarianism by UVE Archives. If you are okay with what's in that thing about organic dairy, and mind you, this is the good kind of exploitation of dairy cows. If you're okay with that being done to the dog whom you love, or the cat whom you love, or the horse, or whatever animal you've had in your lifetime who has been living with you and you love, if you're okay with what's being done in the good kind of dairy, then I don't know what to tell you. But even if we were the most loving and kind to these animals, and while we were killing them, we were stroking their heads and singing them a song, or even if we gave them little beds, exploited them that way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how we're using them that's the issue. It's that. It is that we are using them at all. And until our species realizes that we will never have peace, even if all the psychopaths changed their hearts and they became, peaceful people, and we all were, holding hands and singing Kumbaya, if we continued to exploit non-human animals as we do now, we would still never know peace, because that is at the heart of all the violence in the world. If we can exploit and torture and kill non-human animals the way we do now, vulnerable animals that have no way to resist that, have no way to stop it from happening, if we can resist the most vulnerable beings on the planet, then we can do anything to anybody. We can do anything to anybody if we can exploit and torture and kill the most vulnerable sentient beings on the planet, non-human animals. And that's what we're doing every second of every day. We will never know peace. Never, ever, ever, ever know peace while we are doing that.